Have you ever gotten to the end of a project and thought, I wish I knew that before I started? Like every time, right? Well, in this tutorial, we're going to give you that knowledge right now. We'll cover 3 essential concepts to know when building a Ghost theme. First, we'll talk about Ghost templating language handlebars and what's a templating language anyway. Second, we'll talk about the structure of a Ghost theme. And third, we'll talk about context, or getting the right data at the right time. By knowing these 3 concepts, you'll be well prepared to create a custom Ghost theme. So let's get into it. So like a mold for a cake, a template is a mold for your site's data. You use one template to output the home page and another template to output the post page. Here's a kind of a diagram of how this works. So you start with your basic template, and you can see it's almost like an empty form. And then Ghost merges that, renders it with your site's data. And this includes things like your site title, images, content that you write, and as well as different metadata. And then in the end, what you get is the site in the browser, the page that people come and see and visit. At its core then, creating a Ghost theme is the creation of a set of templates. And Handlebars is the language you use to create those templates. So let's talk a little bit next about what Handlebars is and how it works. When creating a Handlebars template, you'll write most of it in standard HTML. It's the familiar markup under the hood of pretty much every website ever made. Handlebars comes into the picture when you need to render dynamic data in your theme. And by dynamic data, I mean the values you enter into Ghost Admin. So these are things like your site title, your site description, images that you upload, and everything that you add in the Ghost editor. So all of your posts and pages and tags. All of this is controlled, the output of it, by a template and by Handlebars. So let's go through kind of a simple example, the one that's taken from the actual template for Casper's homepage, to explain how Handlebars works. All right, so here I am in the index template for Handlebars, and this is controlling the home page and specifically the site title. So the first thing to notice in this line, we're going to look at line 29, is that it starts with an H1 tag, and this is the H1 tag that you know and love, just standard HTML. This outputs the top level heading, and it has the class of site title on it, and there's nothing new here. This is just the standard HTML that you know. Next, we have 2 curly braces, and you can see that this denotes that this is Handlebars syntax. So whenever you're using Handlebars, you have to have these 2 curly braces, opening it up, and on the other side, closing it. So the Handlebars name comes from the shape of the curly braces because it kind of resembles a Handlebars mustache. And you can always think that just like it would be kind of silly to only have one half of a mustache, you always need to have that other half to have valid Handlebars syntax. And so Handlebars, again, lets us know that we're using dynamic data, that this is going to bring in the data from Ghost Admin, from your Ghost site, and output or render what the correct value is. And in particular, we have a special expression here. So we have the @site object, and it is pulling in the title from that object. So this is just your site title, whatever you call your site, it's going to render that out in the browser. I also have the Ghost VS Code extension installed, which I highly recommend. And so that allows me to hover over this and then see what an example of what's going on here, and how it works. So I'll leave a link to that in the video description. So when we come over to the browser, then this is what that little bit of Handlebars is what's outputting Ghost here. And I can illustrate that a little bit more is by putting in, so site title is, we save that, So if I refresh this, we see then that that new value is added to your Ghost site title and it's output in the browser. Let's summarize our progress so far. A Ghost theme is primarily made up of Handlebars templates. These files are rendered by Ghost with data from your site into HTML that's understandable by the browser. And finally, your audience knows none of this and just loves your beautiful site. Let's get into a little bit more about Handlebars and how it works in Ghost. Ghost makes working with Handlebars easier by providing several helpers. And here I'm on the official docs page for the Ghost helpers, and it's a long list of all these different things that you can use in your templates to make writing Handlebars easier. These types of things, the types of things that helpers can do include controlling flow. So doing one thing if something's true and then doing something else if it's not true. Controlling data, how data is output. Paginating, getting more or additional data, and doing a whole lot more. We of course aren't going to go through all of these, but just to focus on one simple example from the template that we had already been looking at. So I'm back in the index template for Casper and back at that same block of code that we were looking at earlier in the video. And what I want to focus on here is this if helper. And the if helper allows you to control flow depending on whether an expression is true or false. So in this case, we can see that what's happening is this if helper is checking whether the site has a logo set or not. And if it has a logo set, then it's going to render this bit of code. It's going to show the site logo. So that's pretty intuitive that if the site logo exists, then show the site logo. But as you might imagine, not every site is going to have a logo. They're not going to set a logo. In that case, there's this else block. And if there is no site logo, then it falls back to that bit of text that we were looking at before. It falls back to showing the site's title. And what this allows you to do is use those helpers to account for all the different cases to make sure that the theme always looks good. And the if helper, like many of the other helpers, has this syntax where there's a pound sign or a hashtag with if, and then the value, the expression to be evaluated comes after that. So if the site logo is true or if it exists, then it's going to show this bit of text again. If not, then it's going to show this other bit of text, this other code. And so I encourage you to look at the whole list of the helpers. So there'll be a link below to that bit in the docs and see really what these helpers allow you to do when writing Handlebars. While a real-world Ghost theme will be made up of several different kinds of files, there are only 3 that are required to make it work: index.hbs, post.hbs, and package.json. So you can take these 3 files, zip them up, upload the resulting file to Ghost, and then have a fully functioning theme. With that in mind, it's good to understand what these 3 files do to have a really good kind of sense of what makes the structure of a Ghost theme. So first, let's look at index.hbs. I like to think of index.hbs as the front door to your theme because by default, it's going to be what renders your site's homepage. And so I'm here again back in the index.hbs template for Casper, Ghost's default theme. And you can see that what it's doing is it's rendering the site header. And then importantly, when we come down a little bit, it's also outputting a list of posts. And that's really what index does. So like an index to a book, which points to the location of different things in the book, a index template is going to point to the location of your different posts. So when you come to your homepage and you have your list of posts, the index template is what allows you to control that. It'll also be used for other collections of posts like you would have, for example, on a tag page or on a author page. And we'll talk a little bit more about the index template when we talk about context. The next required file is the post.hbs, and it's where the content is. So any post, so any article, the individual post is going to be rendered by the post template, which makes sense, right? It's going to render posts and pages, that is individual pieces of content on your site. And here we have the template from Casper theme. And so you can see it's doing a lot of different work to bring in the author, to bring in the feature image. And then finally down here, it brings in all of the content. So everything you put into the editor, we have the comments coming in, and so on and so forth. So the second required file is this post.hbs. Finally, we have not a handlebars file, but a JSON file, and it's package.json. It's what I like to think of as the brains of the operation. So this is more about configuring and giving metadata about your theme. If you're familiar with Node, it's functioning like a package.json file in a Node project, and the project in this case is just your theme. So it's going to give important information to Ghost about your theme. So you can see it defines the name of your theme, the description, and then importantly, it also provides some different configuration for the theme that informs Ghost. So let's scroll down here till we get to config. And so these are some of the properties that you can configure to tell Ghost how to treat your publication. So this first one is very important. It's the posts per page. So when you come to the home page, how many posts are going to show up? This is where you define that number. So in this case, we have 25 posts per page. That also means when you go to a tag page, you're going to show 25 posts, and then it's going to create a second page for everything after that. It also allows you to define image sizes. So Ghost will optimize your images by default. And this is where you define the names of the different possible image sizes and then what the pixel values are for their width. So we have here a very small image with a 30 pixel width up to the XL Big Daddy image at 2000 pixels. Another important part, or that's part of this package.json file, are custom settings, which is a way for you to define different possibilities that are accessible by the user in Ghost Admin. So one of the ones here, let's take a look at, is title font. So here we have the ability to choose what kind of title font you want. And this will be either modern sans serif or elegant serif. And this allows the user to change the appearance of the title font, which typeface is used from Ghost Admin itself. So package.json allows you to set some of the metadata, set some of the settings and configuration for your Ghost theme. The final concept to understand when working with a Ghost theme is context. Every page in a theme belongs to a context, and that context determines two things: which template is used and the data that is available. I'm here on the written part or written version of this tutorial because I think that the easiest way to understand context is to see this chart we have available here. This chart shows all the different available contexts and then which template is used and which data is used. And I think this gives you just a really nice understanding of what's going on when we talk about context. All right, so the first context is homepage. Here we have the homepage, and this is the first page, the main page of your site. And it actually has two contexts. So this is something to understand, that sometimes a page can have more than one context. So it has the home context, which means that it's like the first page on your site, but then it also is an index page that is a collection of posts. So it also has the index context. The template that renders this context is the home.hbs template, and that's a little bit different than what we saw before, but this is the easiest way to create a custom homepage for your Ghost site. What you can do is just create a file called home.hbs, and Ghost will use that to render your homepage rather than index.hbs. And then for all other collections of posts, it'll still use the index.hbs, but for the home page, it'll use home.hbs. And again, that's a really nice and easy way to create a custom homepage. But like we saw before, you don't need to have a home.hbs because it's going to fall back to that index.hbs if the home template isn't there. As we saw in Casper doesn't have a specific template for the home page. It just uses index.hbs. The data that's available on the home page or in the index route is the collection of posts. And in this case, it's just your default collection of posts. And it'll be the first however many posts are laid out in the package.json file. So there's 25 posts as defined in the package.json file. Then those 25 posts are going to be available to you in your on your home page. That's all brought together by context. All right, moving to the next page, which is post.hbs. So this is the post page. The context is post, and it's rendered by the post template, and it includes the post data. So this is, I think, pretty intuitive that when you have a post, it's going to be the post context, it's going to be the post template. And we don't need to have a fallback template here because, as we saw before, post.hbs is required to be there to be a valid theme. So Ghost knows it's going to be there. There's no fallback. It's going to use post.hbs, and all the post data is going to be available. So if you ever want to see, well, what is post data? What's available? You can come to the docs. So I have the docs here, the contexts, and there's a list of these contexts down at the bottom, and we can go to post. And now it's going to give you here all the different data that's available in the post context. So you have the post ID, the post title, post slug, post excerpt, the post content. So this is the whole body of the post. The URL, the feature image, the alt text for the feature image, the caption for the feature image, whether the post is featured or not, the meta title, the meta description. There's all kinds of stuff here, of course, that's available. But that's what we mean when we say like the post context. So this is all the data that's available in the post context. All right, next we have page, and the page context is rendered by the page.hbs file. But if that's not available, it falls back to post.hbs. So again, we're in the situation where you can specialize which template's going to render it, but you don't have to, and it will fall back to post.hbs. And to understand the difference between, well, what's a page and what's a post, the kind of simple way to think about it is a post is your article, is your essay, it's a piece of content, where a page is more static content, something like an about page or a contact page or a privacy policy. But in the sense of Ghost, a more sophisticated understanding is that, well, a post is going to be included in the collection of posts, but a page will not. So this makes sense too, if you think about it, like on that home page, all your posts are going to be there, but your pages aren't going to be included as part of that collection. For instance, you're going to say, I wrote, post X, post Y, and post Z, but you wouldn't want your about page or your contact page included in that list. And so a page just takes it out of that collection. For every author you create in Ghost, an author page is created. And this is going to be rendered by an author template file if it's there, and then if not, it will fall back again to that index.hbs. And the data that's here is two different things. So one, there's the author data, like their name, their bio, that sort of stuff, but then also all of the posts that they've written. So in the case of if there's 25 posts per page that's configured in package.json, then there'll be the first 25 posts for that author. And for tag, it's very similar. Any tag that's created gets a page created for it, and it's going to be rendered by a tag.hbs file. If that doesn't exist, it'll fall back to index.hbs, and again, it'll have that tag data and post collection available to it. And let's just look real quick at, for instance, like a tag. So here is some of the data that's available, or all the data that's available in the tag context. So you have things like name, slug, description, the image for the tag, the URL for the tag. So this is if you wanted a link to that tag page. And then you have the post list. This is the collection of posts and allows you to loop through those posts. So there's a bit more that can be said about context, but that's a really good kind of introduction to what a context is. And it's really, the takeaway is to understand that it's sort of the glue that holds together the data of your site and the template and makes sure that they're always matched up correctly. In this tutorial, you learn 3 concepts essential to understanding the foundations of a Ghost theme. First, Handlebars is Ghost's templating language and is used to create templates. You now know the basics of this templating language and are well prepared to learn more about it. Second, you learned about the 3 required files for a Ghost theme: index.hbs, post.hbs, and package.json. They contribute to your theme's structure and give you a sense of what makes up a Ghost theme. Third, context. Connect your site's data with the right template. Context is used a lot in our documentation, and now you have a good sense of what's meant when we talk about it. Nevertheless, if all of this seems a bit theoretical, like learning to swim by reading a book, a great next step is to jump right in and try building a custom theme for yourself, or even just making some simple modifications to an existing one. See our tutorial on installing Ghost locally to help you get started. Our tutorials and docs are also fantastic resources, and our forum is a welcoming place to come and ask questions. That's it for this one, but I'll see you soon.